And you would have to, first of all, negotiate the best severance package possible. That's the first step. That means including language that assures rehires with AMR that they would be the first employees to get back, and any other measure like that that you can get into the contract language to protect the workers being laid off, which is something we've done in other parts of California with AMR in the past. The best offensive is to be strong at the table, which is why our group in AMR Tracy is not being strongly affected by any of the layoffs. So, I mean, that is the best strategy to get the best severance package at the table that you can and protect those members, even though they're not going to be your members when they're laid off.
The problem I have with the whole layoff thing and the loss of the Kaiser contract, and I know you guys work for Rural Metro, but my biggest argument should have been is to prevent Kaiser from giving the contract to a non-union company. If we had been in control, we would have been able to put pressure on Kaiser to make sure that didn't happen. In the past, back in the old days when we were on part of SEIU, we were able to stop Sutter from shipping their contract to a non-union company. And that should have been done here with Kaiser. You know, we know everybody's trying to save a buck. We know they're always trying to get the lowest cost. But Kaiser itself is a union company. Their employees are unionized, and it should have been in there. It should have been fought against Kaiser to stop them from shifting their contract over to a non-union company, which would have helped prevent the layoffs. Now we have to deal with what the effects of that's going to be. Hopefully we're going to be able to get these employees to find, hopefully to work to find them other jobs in other areas of AMR. I don't know if that's going to be able to done. Even we're going to have to work to get the IFT division of Rural Metro unionized. We'll be successful in that, but we can't expect that, you know, we get a unionized, negotiated contract. It's going to take time to get those guys up to where the current AMR EMTs are. You know, you can't do those things overnight. It's going to take time. It's going to take years to bring them up because unfortunately the IFT division was allowed to start off as a non-union company, which again is something that should not have occurred. But unfortunately it has. We have to deal with it. And until we get the good numbers of where we're going to find out how far it's going to affect, it's a hard question to really answer right now.
Throughout Northern California. We have that information, we have that data. We're working on the seniority to try to find as many safe landing places as we can for our incumbent people. We also have mandatory rehire provisions based on seniority. We also have the ability to talk about perhaps transfers beyond Northern California first and foremost to address these situations. With respect to the notion of stopping Kaiser from awarding his contract to anyone other than AMR, I'm not so certain that a union has that degree of control over a third-party vendor. Certainly there are ways to influence and lend support to a particular outcome. All we can do is the best that we can. I think NEMSA has a tremendous advantage in the fact that we presently work with AMR and we presently work with Rural Metro in this particular county. And while I don't believe that tripartite negotiations are even possible with AMR given their way of doing business, we nonetheless can run as a facilitator if we're here long enough to do that in the context of the negotiations that we're doing now to strongly urge and negotiate whatever we can for those people to come over here, which we would do. If we're not here, then we're obviously going to have some limitations on how far we can go.
I think the reality of the issue is that employers everywhere are trying to take advantage of the current economic situation in the country. The notion that a union doesn't have the ability to influence a contract and how it's awarded by a third party, I would disagree with. The IAP just recently put a considerable amount of pressure in Tacoma, Washington into awarding Rural Metro their contract once again, despite a lower bid by a different company. So I think in these situations you have to get creative with what you do, use the resources available. The IEP has leverage with AMR through our just 5 locals in California, but our locals across the country with AMR. We're constantly at the table with Benelli. We're constantly at the table with their negotiators, and you have to use that leverage to make what you can happen.
What is your opinion on the current conditions or working conditions at Rural Metro, and what would you change about them? I'll do it.
You guys are working a lot more calls per shift. You're working harder per shift and having problems getting off on time and those types of issues, which seem to be issues that not only at Rural Metro, but seem to be affecting a lot of different shops in the Bay Area. I know in Contra Costa County, a lot of your issues are the same issues we have. You know, it's pretty much, I think, becoming widespread throughout, because the economics in EMS are changing every day. And unfortunately, we're having to do more things with less money. Not only reimbursements, but you know, we're dealing with companies now who are owned by large investment groups. And these large investment groups obviously just didn't get into it because they think EMS is the way to go. They're in it for the money, period. And so they want to build on their profits. They want to build on their investment. And so they're pressuring the companies they own to cut costs. And how do you do that? And that's by decreasing unit hours. So we're going to have to, it's a hard issue, but we're going to have to work on it not only at the company level, but it's going to have to be worked on at the county level, federal level, state level.
When I got to the bargaining table for this unit in the latter part of December, I had the opportunity to speak with a number of the bargaining unit members and look at their feedback regarding the working conditions and what their concerns and criticisms have been over the last 6 months. And one of the things that struck me is that a lot of people didn't believe or didn't realize that the transition from the former employer to the new employer would be as rocky as it ended up being. And after talking through a lot of things, I think people have a better realization that when you change partners, it's going to be a different marriage. You get used to the way things were with the first spouse, you get to the second spouse, and now the toothpaste is on the left side instead of the right side. And if that bothers you, then you're going to have some problems, and you're going to get upset. And we had a lot of that kind of stuff going on. We're working through those issues about running calls, whether you get off on time, that late call. Those are endemic to EMS. Anybody in the 911 system has them across the country. And I know as much as NEMSA, the IEP is fighting those, the Teamsters, every union that represents EMS workers fights that fight. You guys, you know, that is always the big issue. And you can't, you know, there's certain parts of that you can fix. You can have economic penalties, you can put people out of service, you can do these things. And all you can do is really try. But no matter what you do, there's always going to be that exception where the call hits the right time, something happens, and you get held over. But that's the job. And people come back day in and day out despite all of that. Right? So you know. So it's all about getting what you have in the contract, maintaining what you have on the contract, fixing those problems so that you get the benefit of the bargain. That gives you the best working conditions going forward. What you negotiated, what you have.
So just, I guess our basic model is we would come to you, we would sit down, we would rate, you know, how important you think different issues are. We would fight them at the bargaining table. We would fight during impact bargaining if, you know, within management's rights, people decided to change the way the business operated to some smaller extent. But we would look to you to tell us what you need, and we would fight for it. You know, whatever issues those are, if they're important to you as a member, we would use all the resources we have to try to resolve it. You know, we're not miracle workers, but you know, we put every effort that we have, heart and soul.
And I would ask is, why weren't the employees in Santa Clara County involved in the process of the RFP? Why weren't they organized to make sure that they had their say in how the RFP in this county was designed? To make sure that they were heard at that level. So the people who designed that RFP, the county EMS office, knew exactly where the employees were, what their concerns were. So those things were addressed in the RFP. Why wasn't there a transition team of the employees put together once Rural Metro was awarded the contract that worked on all these issues so that there was no misunderstandings when they took over, so that people knew what your work hours were going to be, knew exactly what the transition agreement was going to be, and why wasn't the transition agreement voted on by the membership in Santa Clara. Excuse me.